Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, Miss. Today, I will presentation about diglossia and code switching. Before I started, please let me introduce myself. So, my name is Kevi Shafira. My name is 33210007, and I'm from class 336A07. So, let's get started. The field of linguistics will undoubtedly advance with the advancement of human civilizations. Humans are social creatures by nature, and they engage with others to demonstrate their presence. They unite as a community. When conversing, open societies will come into linguistic contact with different communities. Diglossia is one of the consequences of linguistic contact. The definition of diglossia. So, diglossia is a relatively stable language situation in which, in addition to the primary dialects of the language, or which may include a standard or regional standards, there's a very divergent, highly codified, or often grammatically more complex, superposed variety the vehicle of a large and respected body of written literature, either of an earlier period or in another speech community, which is learned largely by formal education and is used for most written and formal spoken purposes, but it is not used by any sector of the community for ordinary conversation. This is based by Ferguson in Murdoch's 89. According to Ferguson, diglossia refers to a conditions in society where two varieties of one language exist side by side and each has a certain role. So from the explanation diglossia from Ferguson, I can include numerous points stand out from this definition. First is generally stable linguistic condition known as a diglossia occurs when there are multiple major variations of one language in addition to another variety. Second, a standard dialect or a regional standard are two examples of the main variation. And then third, the major varieties have a characteristic that are first, already or very codified, two, more complex grammar, three, a very extensive and respected written literary mode, fourth, learned through formal education, fifth, used mainly in the written and oral formal language, and the last, not used by any stratum in daily conversation. So from the definition of expert, I can conclude diglossia is a linguistic phenomenon that occurs when a society has a two or more variation of language that are used in different situations. In this context, by Ferguson, 1959, divided diglossia into two types, namely high variation diglossia, or we can call H, and low variation diglossia, or we can call L. High variation diglossia, or H, is used in a formal situations such as religious activities, sermons, speeches, new broadcasts, or in editorials in newspaper, while low variation of diglossia, or we can call L, is used in formal situations such as a casual conversation or between families. The factors that influence the form of diglossia include functions, prestige, literary heritage, equation, standardization, stability, grammar, lexicon, and phonology. First is a function. A functional aspect of diglossia is one of its key characteristic. A single language has two versions in the diglossion society. These differences are referred to as low variety, or we can call L, and high variety, or we can call H. So there are a few countries that use two varieties in one language. First is the countries that use Arabic. The each variety that is classical Arabic, Al-Fusha, L variety that is Arabic variety used by the Arabs at Darji. Second is the country of Greece. H variety that is pure Greek, yeah, that is Katarousoa, and L variety that is oral Greek, or it is Dimotiki. And then the last, the Central Europe, by that are Italy, France, and Spain. H variety that is Latin, L variety that's language in the daily speaking. Not only in the language, but diagnosis on the use of the H and the L can also be used in every daily life. First is a sermon in a church or in the mosque. Second, in the talk in the parliament or political speech. Third, lecture in the university. Fourth, news broadcast. Fifth, editorial in newspaper. And the last is the poem. And the examples of uh, L variety is first is order to workers, servant, and artisan. Second, personal letter. Third, conversation with family and colleagues. And then fourth, radio drama. Fifth, political cartoon comments, and the last is folk literature. And then second, prestige. In the Dioglysian community, there's a subjective belief that the H dialect is more respectable, prestigious, and superior than the L dialect, which is inferior and occasionally even denied by some. Happens in the opinions of most educated Haitians and Arabs who argue that the L variety is unnecessary while using in it everyday speech. And then third is literary heritage. This factor is related to how society maintains and develops language and culture traditions through literary works. In some contexts, literary heritage can be a source of inspiration and reference for people in using higher or lower varieties of language, depending on the situation and communication goals. Therefore, literary heritage plays an important role in determining how diglossia is used in society and how to maintain the culture of the language community to which they belong. So the example is folk literature and a poetry use the L variety, although many society members assume that only literature and poems with the H variety are actually the literary works of nations. Fourth is acquisition. Acquisition in the diglossia refers to the process by which individuals learn and use multiple varieties of a language, often with distinct social and functional contexts. So this concept is particularly relevant in societies where diglossia is prevalent, such as in Arabic speaking communities where modern standard Arabic, or we can call MSA, and spoken varieties of Arabic are used in different settings. Acquisition of diglossia involves the mutual influences of formal and colloquial language varieties on children's grammatical judgments. Research has shown that children tend to perform better on the item presented in colloquial Arabic than in standard Arabic, except for constructions involving negotiation. Fifth is standardization. So standardization in diglossia refers to the process of establishing a standardized form of language, often in a contrast to a more informal or colloquial variety. So formal codification is typically used to standardize the H variety, which is regarded as a prestigious variety. It can be in the form of rule books for using appropriate language, dictionaries, grammars, and pronunciation manuals. The L variety, meanwhile, is seldom ever noticed. In the event that any codification occurs, is often created by researchers using various language and speech communities. Six is a grammar. So in diglossia, Grammar plays a crucial role in distinguishing between the high and the low varieties of a language. So according to Ferguson, similar language forms create H and L varieties in diglossia, although there are grammatical differences. Two examples would be German and French. So the first standard German has a four noun cases and two indicative simple tenses, while Swiss German has a three noun cases and one indicate simple tense. And the second, French nouns indicate agreement in the number and type or gender, while Creole or Haitian nouns do not. Seventh, in the context of diglossia, the lexicon refers to the vocabulary used in both the high and the low varieties of a language. In the term of vocabulary, most the H and L varieties are the same. However, there is a H variety verbs that do not have a pair in the L variety or vice versa. For example, in Indonesia, money, which is mean uang, as a H variety and duit as a L variety. And then also word of the bad, which means buruk as H variety and jelek as L variety. And then eight, phonology. In diglossia situation, the phonology of the high variety is often more complex and formal, while the phonology of the low variety is simpler and more formal. And the last is stability. Stability in sociolinguistics refers to the persistence of linguistic patterns or features within a speech community over time, often in the face of external pressures or influences. In diglossian communities, the existence of language varieties has been maintained for a significant amount of time. This leads to stable H and L varieties. With the development of language, the L varieties borrowing the lexical elements from the H variety is a common. But using the L varieties as lexical elements in the H variety is less common because the variety is usually used when forced. Next, I will explain the definition of code switching. So, code switching is a term in the linguistics referring to using more than one language or variety in the conversation. Code switching is the process of alternating between one linguistic code and another. The term was coined by the American linguist Einar Haugen. Sometimes, the bilingual speakers getting problem when they having a conversation with another bilingual, so they switches their language from code to another in the construction of sentence to make the interlocutor understand. Sometimes they do it with the same language background and it may do so many times. Code switching is the one of alternative ways to bilingual of two or more languages in the same conversation. Himes, 1974, defines code switching as a common term for alternative use of two or more languages, varieties of language, or even speech styles, while Bokamba, 1989, defines code switch is the mixing of words, phrases, and sentences from two distinct grammatical or subsystem across sentence boundaries within the same speech event. When a teacher teaches a foreign language in the classroom, code switching is one of the learning tactics used to help the students improve their English language proficiency. The teacher uses the target language to present the topic at the beginning of the meeting before switching back to Indonesian to make sure the students understand. As far as possible, the student speaks in the target language, but for any part of an utterance that they are unable to create in the target language, they return to speaking in their hometown. So the example is, good morning class. Okay students, today we will study about part of the body. And then the teacher repeat with Indonesian language like, selamat pagi anak-anak, hari ini kita akan belajar tentang bagian-bagian tubuh. And then teacher says, now listen to your name. dengar namanya when teacher absents. And then the student answers, present sir atau hadir pak. And then the teacher says good, bagus, when the student has answered the question well. So, in the general, there are various viewpoints regarding code switching. The social motivation for switching are a major area of study of the study in sociolinguistics. This line of inquiry focuses on both distant and immediate discourse factors such as speakers or group identity and relationship building or solidarity as well as lexical need and discussion topic and setting. The regularity with which a person would utilize specific expression from one or the other language in his everyday communications might also be reflected in the code switching. That is, one language's expression might be more easily remembered than its equivalent in the other language. Both intracentral and intercentral code switching can take place within a single sentence. So code switching can occur between sentences or intersentential or within a single sentence or intrasentential. There are four major types of switching. First, it is text switching, in which text and certain set phrases in one language are inserted into an utterance otherwise in another. For example, the teacher says, benar, that's a good answer, and then bagus, good job Santi. So the words "that's a good answer" can be considered as a tag. Sometimes emblematic code switching or tag switching can take the form of intersentential switching where categorical equivalence exists between the two languages involved. Second, intrasential switching, in which switches occur within a clause or sentence boundary. It can take the form such as code chaining, code mixing, insertion, and congruent lexicalization. For example, menurutku that's a good idea, or open your books and kerjakan halaman 10. For example, above includes code chaining or complete shift to another language system at the major constituent boundaries. The third, interstitial switching, in which a change of language occurs at sentence levels where each clause or sentence is in one language or the other. Example, have you done? Sudah pak. May I see? Ini pak. From example above, interstitial code switches was to relate speech that had already occurred in others' conversation in English, and it more frequent than interstitial. And the last is intra-word switching, in which a change occurs within a word boundary. Example, ujian hari ini adalah oral. The word of the oral is the considered instance of speech borrowings, where the speaker borrows an English word. So that's all from me, Miss. Thank you very much for watching this video. And I'm sorry if I'm making too much mistaken. Thank you very much and have a nice day.